så mycket, Eva.
Då var det dags för benmärgsprov igen.
Ja.
Och det vet du hur det går till.
Jag har gjort ett antal gånger.
Ett antal gånger, ja. Sådär, ja.
Today, Eva Hellström Lindberg is going to take bone marrow samples from one of her most interesting patients, the one they call Mr. Index.
Sticks det fortfarande?
Nej.
Nej. Hur känns det?
Jo, tack. Det känns bara bra.
His real name is Åke Hillerö, but they call him Mr. Index because it seems that his stem cells contain answers to the mystery surrounding the blood disease MDS. Inside the marrow of our bones, we find stem cells which become our blood cells. But sometimes, damage to the stem cells stops them from developing into mature blood cells. If the bad stem cells take over in the bone marrow, MDS leads to blood cancer, which can develop slowly over decades with declining blood values and fatigue. But in some cases, the blood cancer caused by MDS can become acute and fatal soon after symptoms are detected.
The goal of my science is to understand the stem cells' underlying disease in patients, to understand how they lead to disease, to understand how to control them, and eventually how to treat them.
Ja, det gick bra, Eva.
And in this work, Mr. Index's stem cells can provide important clues. We'll come back to that. But we start 40 years ago, when Eva was a new doctor and hardly anyone bothered to study the disease, even though it had already been afflicting many people.
So I started here in 1985 as a junior doctor and as a PhD student. And at that time we had several patients with tremendously poor blood values. They were feeling very poorly and they didn't live for a long time. And we didn't have a name for their disease. My older colleagues were not interested in this disorder. They didn't understand it. I didn't understand it either, but I found it a challenge, and it was very exciting to start off with something new and to make a difference.
Almost 40 years after Eva met her first MDS patients, she is still researching and leading her own group. And they have had many breakthroughs. Eva and her team have found ways to help the blood of affected patients so that they've been able to live better longer. And they have found ways to detect the bad stem cells very early, which improves the chances of getting treatment.
The most exciting thing with my job is to find things in the lab, to develop new methods, and then be able to bring them to the clinic and really help patients.
In 2016, Eva was awarded an international prize for her outstanding contributions for the treatment of MDS.
I have the most exciting job in the world.
But because patients are still suffering and dying, Eva and her colleagues continue working on this mystery of why bad stem cells at some point take over. And with the help of mapping the genes of all of her patients, Eva seems to be onto something. Inside the stem cells' genes, DNA order different blood types. The order is then fine-tuned by RNA so that production can start. And Eva's team has found a change, a mutation, which causes the fine-tuning to go wrong, whereupon the cell cannot take care of iron the way it should. The patient then makes fewer red blood cells. This results in difficulty oxygenating the blood, which leads to fatigue and cancer.
Hej Åke.
Hej, Eva.
And the mutation that Eva found is exactly the kind of mutation Mr. Index has.
Vi går in.
Det som är bra med din benmärg, det är att du har friska celler som står på sig. De klarar sig och de fortsätter att göra röda blodkroppar.
Mr. Index's healthy stem cells take a stand and don't let the bad ones take over. and the healthy stem cells keep on producing good red blood cells. If Eva can understand why this happens, it could be used for therapy in other patients who aren't as lucky as Mr. Index.
Det är fantastiskt att få bidra till vetenskapen.
Ja, det är fantastiskt att du vill göra det.
Ja, det gör jag gärna. Jag har gjort det gärna.
So we are now starting to understand the disease mechanisms better. And of course then the next challenge is to be able to translate this into better treatment for patients. And for some patients with slower MDS, we are starting to understand that the goal is to support the healthy stem cells and make them continue to produce blood. While in other forms of MDS, the main goal will be to get rid of all the sick stem cells, in particular after stem cell transplantation.
Så där är det bra. Tack för idag.
Hej då. During my 40 years of research, we have seen a fantastic development within the field. But the interesting thing is that the more we find and the more we discover, the more there is to do in the future. That's very hopeful. There are a couple of years before I retire, and I would very much like to answer some more riddles before I do. But I would also like to ask novel questions for others to continue with.